U.S. Congressman Keith Ellison of Minnesota is a member of the Financial Services Committee, and Republican Congressman Darrell Issa of California has been on the show before, is with the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. I want to start with a new kid on the block, Keith Ellison. Sir, what are we going to do about these boneheads or bandits or whatever you want to call them? They're passing out the money even as the House is crashing.
Well, what we're going to do is we're first of all going to let the public know and let them know that this is unacceptable. It's outrageous. It's the kind of greed that has gotten us into this problem.
Don't they know that? Do you think these people are subject to shame?
Chris, if they knew it, they wouldn't be doing it. And so I think that it's very important that they know it, that we know it. But what are we going to do next? We've got to investigate these contracts to see if there is a way for us to get back some of this money. The fact is that from what I've read, these contracts were perfected before the whole financial unraveling began. But that doesn't mean that these contracts cannot be examined. It seems to me that these so-called retention bonuses are for people who probably shouldn't be retained.
Well, you know, they're benefiting from our belief in the free enterprise system, Congressman Issa. Are these people traitors to capitalism or are captains of capitalism? People that are this greedy to grab the money even as the country suffers. What would you call these people?
Well, Chris, what I'd say is you're calling the wrong people boneheads. The boneheads are the people in the previous administration and this administration who gave out over $170 billion of our money and did not, in fact, do what anyone else giving money does, which is ensure that that money is not going to be a conduit for simply paying out bonuses. Every takeover, every debtor in possession financing, every bankruptcy, these are questions that are asked. So we certainly pay a lot of people who should ask those questions and answer. So as Keith is saying, of course we want to make sure that these contracts that allowed them to get these bonuses are studied to see if there was any way that they should not have gotten them. But at the same time, we've got to look at both the Bush administration under Paulson and under Geithner under the Obama administration and say, what were you thinking when you gave out the first billion or the last billion not to ensure that you got these kinds of concessions? And understand, if they'd been forced to file bankruptcy, these concessions would have been drawn away from them on the first day of a Chapter 11.
But, Congressman Ellison, I see in this behavior the kind of fast and loose who grab the money and run mentality, the gold digger, whatever you call it, mentality of the last 20 or so years on Wall Street, which is take what you can. If you don't get a 30% return, you're a chump. Grab it, make as much as you can, have as many tricks as you can up your sleeve. It doesn't matter what's at the bottom of it. And everybody's happy because there's so much money floating around. It was a loosey-goosey atmosphere, highly immoral or amoral. Isn't this just part of that?
Well, I think we lit a fuse back in 1999 that exploded on us in September of this year. The fact is, when we said that credit default swap market was not going to be regulated, we were going to have an opaque market with no regulation whatsoever. This thing ripened into a situation where we have, where if we didn't do anything at all to forestall the financial crisis, we'd even have more of a catastrophe than we have right now. The reality is, no, wait a minute, Chris. The other big piece of news that came out is that the counterparties to all these contracts have just been revealed. Not each and all of them, but we know now about 80 different counterparties have been revealed. The state of California, the state of Hawaii, the state of Virginia, not to mention Merrill Lynch, Bank of America. All these people got money, Goldman Sachs. And so you do nothing, the problem could be worse than it is. But I agree with Darrell's point. We got to make sure that as regulators, we don't commit legislative malpractice and that we dig into this stuff and make sure we cut a good deal as any business person would.
Congressman Issa, as I understand it, AIG had this notion that they could insure basically against this any of these defaults. They basically insured the secondary loan market dramatically. They said, well, insure it all. The trouble is when there's a fire in that market, every tree burns down, every house burns down, everything goes. The company cannot afford to meet all its losses. What's the problem? Is there such a thing as this default market? Is there something credit default market? Is there really a logical market here where you can insure against the whole of banking system like they did?
No, of course not. But, you know, Lloyd's of London has been around for centuries, and they understand they can only take so much of a particular market. In this case, AIG took all they could get and asked for more, and ultimately, because it was the most profitable part of insurance, essentially being the insurer of last resort, they said, well, the risk is low. The truth is, although the risk was low, they took the entire market, and that's what cost us.
And they could never back up what they promised to insure.
Exactly.
It's such a sad story, and it's so understandable if you spend some time thinking about it. This is something we're all going to learn to our chagrin and anger. Anyway, thank you, U.S. Congressman Keith Ellison and U.S. Congressman Darrell Issa for coming on Hardball. Coming up, Dick Cheney is back. The former vice president